About now, can y'all hear me now? Y'all should be able to hear me now. Looks like I accidentally hit the. Okay, yeah, looks like I accidentally hit. I didn't even know that button was it. Let me tell y'all something. Why are they gonna put that button? Okay, it's right next to the on this thing. It's right next to the screen brightness or whatever. And apparently, I bumped it whenever I was adjusting the screen brightness. So there we're back. All right, what's happening, everybody? There we go. Hope y'all are having a good whatever day you're watching this. So getting back to what I was saying before, I was just basically doing that. So put whatever soundtrack over me looking like that you want. So getting back to it, Stormy's doing great. And I got to tell you guys something. I've had so much fun getting Stormy to the point where she's at now because I've done nothing to the truck. That's the fun thing about it, is that every amount or every ounce of gain that's coming out of that truck has been just through tuning it. And so to kind of give you an idea where we started, the truck, I think the best the truck ran and this is in about 1600 foot DA, when it was bone stock, no tune, no nothing, was a 14.6, but she had no miles on her, no break-in miles or anything like that. And so now, obviously, with the air, we were able to get her down into, 1384 is the best. But the thing about that 1384 hit, and I just posted up a 14.0 hit for some of you guys that were saying, well, you're cheating with the DA. I'm just going out and running the truck, but okay. So I ran the truck in 1650 DA. I was guessing 15 to 16, and I checked my local track. Local track said it was 1652, I think was the number. Anyway, midsummer, which is October, is still basically summer down here. It's in essence a 1600 foot day. And the truck still goes out and drops a 14.0, which I'm really happy with. Now, granted, I was able to get into the throttle more quickly with the higher density altitude. And that's evidenced if you look at that 60 foot number. The 60 foot was actually quicker on the 14.0 than it was on the 1380 pass, because on that 1380 pass, I'm just into the throttle, just trying to keep it teetering on the outside of, or just this side of breaking the tires loose, where I didn't have to be as timid with the throttle on that 14.0 hit. Although, even with that being said, if I were to just really whap that throttle down to the floor, it would just light the tires up, even with the stock Wranglers on the back, which I am running at as delivered pressure. What is it? 33, 35 PSI, whatever it is. So all that being said, we've got a really good running, really happy Stormy. I mean, making some real slight tweaks to the tune here and there, just kind of buttoning up some stuff, but nothing that would really make that much of a difference. Anyway, the main idea is that, yeah, in really good air, the truck is quicker. Well, no kidding. The sky is blue too, right? Grass is green. But the idea is that the lower the DA, the more important it is to be slower on that throttle. And to be honest with you guys, I'm at a point now with the truck where even if I have stellar DA like I did the other night, and it'll even get lower than that out here, I'm at a traction limited situation. So any gain that I have is mitigated by the fact that I've got to be so easy with the truck out of the hole. And if you notice, the mile an hour difference isn't all that much, but it is there. It's there by about, I think, a mile or 2 miles an hour on the back half of that run. And that'll give you an idea for just how strong Stormy was with that lower DA versus the 1600 in muggy, by the way, air that we've got here. So that's the difference between like negative 250 and 1600. We're talking about an 1,800 foot, call it 2,000 feet, really, which is about 6% difference in power. And the truck is only about a tenth and a half off, really 2/10, honestly, to the number 2/10. And a lot of that has to do with the traction. And a lot of that has to do with the fact where the truck is just that much stronger. So something to think about. When you're breaking it down on your end, if you've got one of these trucks and you're running it and you're trying to get an idea for how it works, that's how it works. By the way, the draggy is dead on exact for what it shows at the drag strip. I can tell you guys that, we've had the Draggy out there before. I've done videos with me at the drag strip with the Draggy, and typically the Draggy is a little bit pessimistic even. So unfortunately, my truck's got a hook though, and hooking on those tires at the drag strip is actually tougher than it is in a no prep situation. So we're going to stick with the no prep stuff. But I can tell you this, I'm having so much fun with that truck, and it's funny. So I'm having more fun with that truck than I think most people have with their cars when they start throwing a ton of money at them. And this is what I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about tonight. And, it's one of those things where, you get a lot of guys that really turn into size queens when it comes to horsepower numbers and, how fast is it? Does it run nines and all this other stuff? And they forget that the whole point of doing this stuff is to have fun and not have something that's so skittish that it's going to break. And the neat thing about playing in the shallow end, like you guys always hear me talking about playing in the shallow ends, because I did used to play in the deep end of the pool. And I learned relatively quickly that although it's neat to be able to talk about, it's fun for story time to be able to talk about the 1,000 horsepower Viper stuff and, the AC Cobra with a big block stuff and my 94 Cobra with the Kuntz & Company blown 427. It sounds neat. It's got a neat rattle, and there's some kind of a romance that always seems to go along with that, but they were never fun. I'm having so much fun with this truck, I'll forget that Revlon is even in the garage back over here. It's just kind of a weird deal. Not that you forget. Okay, I think you understand where I'm coming from with this, is that, man, this is so neat. And being able to use all the power that you bought in conditions that it was meant to be driven in, that's kind of fun. So anyway, I don't know, maybe I didn't really explain myself well enough by saying all that, but I will say that I'm having way more fun than a lot of folks are having by spending a ton of money on their cars. Anyway, and it's just kind of, it's funny too, because Revlon is like, I love that car to death. Right. But Stormy's kind of funny because Stormy to me is a lot more relatable. I think Stormy is something that you see a truck like Stormy going down the road every time you drive. And it's funny because, you look at the thing and go, it's just a pickup truck. But the weird thing is that we've normalized living in a world where 13-second trucks are just kind of running around everywhere. And all that being said, Stormy's body count is stacking. I mean, we've got a stock Lightning, the old school 03 Lightning that she ran. One G body, a couple of Chevy trucks. Stormy's actually kind of dished out more than she's taken, which is kind of funny to me. But I don't know. She's just, man, she's got some big old thighs, man. She just gets moving in this. I don't know. I like it. So anyway, let me check in with you guys real quick. Enough about me yammering on. Looks like first part of that was me just chatting and not having any. Why do they even put, that's a stupid, listen, you're going to put a microphone button right next to the volume, but I guess that's like good merchandising for the button, but I mean, I don't know. Anyway, but if you hit the volume buttons, it doesn't turn it back. Anyway, getting back to it. Chuck saying it's all good. You're back. Marco's saying I can't find an 8-speed regular cab out here, but they're getting tough to find. Actually, there are quite a few down here, but they're getting a little tough to find, the 8-speed RCs. Gary Fuller's in saying, what up, B? Got the flex. Robo's in saying, eat first, B. Have you thought about putting a party pulley on the Red Rocket? No. Man, the reason why is to do it right, you got to convert to E85. I don't care what anybody tells you. It's just the smart play is to actually convert fuels. And the reason why I say that is got a lot of experience with these Hellcats. And I know there's a ton of people that are going to argue this, but you have to remember, if you're at sea level, part of the year that you have where you have really low density altitude conditions, you can actually exceed the stock tables. It's kind of funny. I've done it a few times with Revlon, as a matter of fact. So, if I lived at a higher altitude, though, like say if my actual walking around altitude was 1,500 feet, I would have already put a 295 or a 3 pulley on her. Only because I would simply be density altitude correcting the car, because the higher the altitude, the lower the DA is, because the lower the altitude is. Or I'm sorry, the higher the altitude is. So if you live at a higher density altitude, then you can get away with pulleying. If you live at a lower altitude, in other words, your corrected altitude can be 0 or lower. A lot of times it's best to stick with what you got. Again, unless you're going to switch fuels for the pulley, or you're going to switch fuels, in which case the 85 works great for everything that's boosted, but I don't really feel the need to have to do that just yet. Ardell saying, you are rocking that truck. I'm really liking that. And again, guys, I'm on record as saying this over and over again. I didn't come into this purchase with the truck. I didn't come into this thinking I would even like the truck. Like, not that I would hate it or something. I mean, it's not, there we go. It's nothing like that. It's just that I just really ended up liking that truck a whole lot. And she's responded really well to tuning inputs. Although I will say this, the funny thing about the DT Ram in my experience so far is they are such in a bad mood after a tune. What's funny is I've got experience with the Hellcats has taught me that sometimes Hellcats can get in a real bad mood right after a tune. The 392s, not so much. They kind of can bitch a little bit. But the DT it's funny because it's like it has to go through a subroutine relearn, and something that I don't have a visual on, and it's not part of like a master relearn. Or I say all that only because that's what it looks like. I mean, the knock sensor voltage will be real erratic for seemingly no reason, even at the same timing values. And then you make another hit, everything starts to clean up. You make a third hit and it's really clean. And so you can be fooled into thinking that there's something else going on. It's just some kind of a weird, seems like there's a difference anyway. Long story short, they can sometimes get into a pissy mood. Mopars are kind of famous for that, by the way. Marco's saying, 5.7 Hemi's a beast. 321 is fun on the highway, and good on gas for a heavy truck. So here's the thing: for a DT, I personally wouldn't get a 392 gear. Unless it's a 4-wheel drive truck and you're going to put, style it out with some different rims and tires. The newer transmission ratios are just a little bit more aggressive. And I noticed that I could not get a 392 truck to hook up on stock tires. That being said, if you've got a DS Ram with the HP 70, not the HP 95 with the 471 first gear, then yeah, I would go 392s all day long with that, because if you're rocking the 20s, the tire height with those 20s and with that transmission with those ratios favors the 392, where it doesn't favor the 321 very much. So depending on which truck you get, I'm either yes, team 321, or I'm absolutely yes, 392 gear. Donald's saying they don't make the regular cabs anymore. That is correct. Yeah, they quit making them. They just weren't selling enough of them. So you got to get them on the used market. Marco's asking, do I watch UFC today? I did not catch any of that. I've been busy all day. Marco's liking 4th gen better than the 5th. I've got both of them right now. I like them both. Alberta saying, hey, B, took down a C7 Stingray, my stock 392 Challenger today at the drag strip. Very nice. 1225 to a 1229. C7 owner thought my car wasn't stock. A TRX gave me some fits, though. I bet TRX will give you hell out of the hole. And yeah, the C7, listen, yeah, on the drag strip, they're actually going to be pretty close, which surprises both drivers. You know, it's funny, the Corvette drivers kind of going, oh crap, this Challenger is giving me all I can handle. And, you know, you look at from the Challenger point of view, it's like, man, I'm hanging with this C7. That's pretty good considering the power to weight ratio out of that vet. And it's a lot more aerodynamic. Plus it's a freaking Corvette. Eric saying, good evening, Professor B. Good evening, Eric. Marco's saying he's had more fun in his Cam Ram than the Red Eye. I can understand that. Nixon, what's up, brother? How's it going, B? Got the tires swapped on the Red Eye. Very nice. Thanks for getting me his info. Absolutely. Fresh off this shoulder surgery saying, what's up? I'll catch the replay. Man, get some rest. Get that shoulder all healed up, man. We got to get you ready for January, my friend. So quick recovery on that one, bud. Carzilla's in. By the way, Nick's got the Red Eye that I've got the biggest crush on in the world. It's black on black Red Eye, and I freaking love that car. By the way, owner of a car that one of probably the top 10 races I've ever had. Impromptu, we ended up lining up next to each other, and Nick got out on me, freaking treed me. And we were literally like this with me being, well, from your point of view, me being in the right-hand lane, him in the left-hand lane. And man, I just could not cover ground fast enough. He beat me and the margin of victory was measured in inches. I mean, I can't even tell you that anything was separating us literally all the way down the drag strip. So awesome, awesome pass. Like I say, I love that Red Eye. It's an awesome car. Can't wait to see it back in action. Let's see. Carzilla saying, when I bought my Hellcat, it has 315s on it, about a 1/4 inch gap from the inside frame. Would wheel spacers be a good idea? I'm thinking 12 millimeter more would be okay. Man, I don't necessarily like 12 mils on that. You might go with something really small like a 3 just to get it away, but you didn't say what 315s are on it. And I'm guessing it's a regular body car. The problem with 315s, it's the same. Well, they start with the Nitto Tri-5 315s, and it gets worse from there. But the problem with 315s is if you've got a Challenger, it's going to rub on the inside. I would probably see if you could swap the 315s for a set of 305s or 295s. Visually, you cannot tell the difference between the two. Actually, 295 looks really good because if you go 295/40, it'll fill that wheel well up a little bit better too. It's actually the tire size I'm thinking about switching over myself. And I've got 10.5 inch wide wheels, and I'm still thinking about going with, if Nitto sells them, but they'd have to have them in the drag radial. I can't really use them if they're not, but I'm trying to find a stickier tire that'll fit within that range, because the Tri-5s, again, they're like a small 315 and they rub. Oh, Robot saying my thoughts as well. Thanks for the reply. E85 or stock. Yeah, I mean, you got to go corn, man. I'm sorry. It's the way of it. And I know this because, I'm such a dork when it comes to fuel quality testing. And keep in mind, fuel quality degrades. Okay. You can start off the tank of gas. It's great. You let it sit for a month or two and it's going to start to go down. So just know that coming into this, there's a lot more to it than just throwing the car out there and going watt. There's take a lot of things into account. You can only make as much power as your fuel will let you, which is one of the reasons why I always tell guys, if you're winterizing your car, make sure that when it's time, springtime thaws out in your neck of the woods, get the car, drive it. Just drive it very easily. Do not go watt. Do not go into power and rich. Just drive the thing around for about a week. Burn all the fuel out of it because you'll have stored it with a full tank. Burn all that fuel out of it run some fresh, don't go watt, run that tank dry, and then you can play with it after that. Just get all of that crap out of your tank when you winterize the cars. Arvo saying, good evening, Mopar gang. Just finished a 14-day week. I remember those. Ready to check the fluid levels and air pressures in my Challenger and disappear on an all-day road trip. I like it. Marco's asking, what do you like better on the 5th gen? Oh, man, where do I start? So mechanically, has an electric fan. That makes life really nice. I like the fact that the truck is a little bit lighter. I like the HP 75 transmission versus the HP 70. It's a little bit more robust and it's a little bit more aggressive gear ratios. Now, all of that being said, the interior of a 5th gen puts the 4th gen to shame in terms of ergonomics. And this is something that I've been kind of wanting to put a video together for. It's just kind of hard to do, but comparing the two. And, but anyway, the 5th gen ergonomics of the interior are better if you're talking about a quad cab or if you're just the driver. The crew cab, both of them are good just in terms of comfort and everything like that. But from a mechanical standpoint, I kind of laid that out a little bit. There's really not a whole lot different. The 5th gen has a better Y pipe. The 5th gen has a better exhaust just in general with the way that they're set up now with that long non-resonated mid pipe. So I know they're rated the same, but that is absolute nonsense because my Sport Quad DS with 392 gears never saw a 13-second pass. It saw a ton of 1420s, but it never saw a 13-second pass. So I can tell you that they're just quicker in that respect. A little bit has to do with the lightweight. A little bit has to do with the fact that it doesn't have, the exhaust and all that other stuff that I was just talking about. And the other part of that is, it's just a sweet riding truck. That's the other side of it. But again, from a performance standpoint, the 5th gen is a little bit, but I'm saying it's a little bit better once I've gotten my hands on it. So there are some things in the tune on the DS that I like a little bit better. I will have to say that the tune in the DS does tend to be a little bit more aggressive in some areas than the DT, which is the 5th gen. But taking all of that out of the equation, the DT from a ride point of view is in a completely different category. In fact, the first time I drove the DT, let me think about this. The first time I drove the DT, I was so blown away with how that thing rode, how quiet it was by comparison. It felt like you were driving a big SUV versus a pickup truck, the way that truck handles. Oh, that reminds me too. Another thing, the DT does seem to handle better, probably because of the weight difference. It's about 200 pounds different. It's about 150 pounds if you don't have the e-torque, but it's at worst case scenario, it's 150 pounds lighter than the classic. But again, that I have to go back and say, I have to couch all this by saying the vehicle that got me back into Mopar was my DS Ram. So, it's that I was that impressed by the truck. Let's see what else about the DT. The ride, here's something for you. They don't use those freaking round detents in the 4th gen that they use in the 4th gen. They don't use those detents, the door detents in the 5th gen. They use a riding ball style in the 5th gen. What that means is that the 4th gens, that thing with the door that they all freaking do to make it sound like an old truck when they're not, you won't have that problem with the DT. It's just the way that it's designed. There's no way for it to actually do that. So some things that I like about the DS better than the DT, because this is not a one-sided fight, to say the least. Right off the bat, I can tell you that the DS is a better work truck than the DT, just from the fact that it has that built-in under the backseat storage. That alone was a disappointment that the DT did not have that. I like where the and I guess I could kind of do this. No, I couldn't. So the DT has these integrated plugins for phone chargers, but the problem is the Uconnect keeps wanting to suck the brains out of your phone whenever you plug them in. The DS, you don't have to worry about that. It's just, you've got just a 12-volt plug. And the way that I have mine set up is I've got an inverter. I pulled that lower panel off and just mounted a converter up in there, or an inverter up in there. And I just have stuff plugged into the inverter and pop that panel back. So I've got the cables coming out, and it is what it is, right? I mean, it's a work truck. And so the DS, from a practical point of view, in a lot of ways, just from an efficiency, from a, does it make more sense? There's some things that make a little bit more sense with the DS, with the classics, than with the DT. But if you're talking about a DT in that it's a really good car with a big old trunk, that's kind of what it is. But from a handling point of view, it's better. And the other thing that the DT does better than the DS is stability. So the DS with a load, or even without a load for that matter, when you hit bumps, it yaws. And actually, it'll yaw right to left. And it's just, I don't know if it's a Panhard bar issue or what, but the DS will actually kind of yaw a little bit when you hit expansion joints. The DT won't do that, even though it's practically the same suspension. I don't know how they get away with doing it differently, but it doesn't do that. Now, that can be a little bit off-putting. I've actually had on Buffy, I've actually had the stability control fire off with the truck hitting expansion joints. And that's really sketchy because it just starts applying brakes and you're going, what the hell, So that just could be a one-off deal with my truck. But again, that's kind of my thoughts between the DS and the DT. DS is a great, the DS is a really good truck, but the DT is just a more comfortable transportation appliance that happens to be lighter and by that fact run a little bit better. Gary's saying, hello everyone. What's up, Gary? Steve Brazil saying, hello. Chuck saying, everywhere I go, I get compliments about my Challenger Scat color. Hellraisin does pop in the sunlight. Hellraisin's a good looking color. Carzilla's checking out. Thank you, Carzilla. Hey, Chuck's, I performed the Star Spangled Banner live on the radio tonight with my Les Paul. I love it. WBTN 96.5 on the Mullet Man show. This was super cool. Very awesome. That's awesome. I love it. Congratulations. Sovereign saying, sup, B, sup, everyone. Sup, Sovereign. Yeah, that's really cool, Chuck. HU37 saying, I'm looking for a drag radial tire. The wheels are 17 by 10, so I can go a 275 to 305 wide tire. What would you suggest? I changed my tires at the drag strip, so I won't be driving on the street with them. DBRs, man, 28 1050s. That's kind of where you're going to want to be. That's what I run on mine. And I really wouldn't imagine running a different tire at this stage of the game. The Hoosier, by the way, is where is the DBR drag bracket radial. That's the tire I personally would go with. That's the tire that I choose to run on my car. And the reason why is that it is the most forgiving at the drag strip. One of the things you'll notice with the Hoosier over the Mickey Thompson offering is that although the ET Street R, or actually ET Street radial, one thing you'll notice about the DBR over that tire is that the DBR is going to hook where the Mickey Thompson won't. And if you've got kind of sketchy, you've got a little bit of a sketchy track prep, the DBR is going to hook more often than that that Mickey Thompson. Now, listen, I've run Mickey Thompsons for years and years and years. It's just that of late, the Mickeys, man, I've run into problems with them. And I've had, it's bad when you've got to return a set of tires. Had to do that. And it's not like these things were free. And luckily, the guys that I was working with took good care of me. Has nothing to do with him. It's just that the Mickeys have been having problems, and in further discussion have found out that the Mickeys have continued to have problems with build quality. Here's one thing, what was wrong with mine. I'm going to try to use these two lids as a like a visual aid here. So think of these two lids here as two halves of the tire, and the two halves come together, make that tire, right? Well, actually, let me do it like that. So the two halves would come together and make the tire. The problem is that this tire had one half that was higher than the other. So it was not really round. I guess you can make the argument that after a few burnouts, they might start to even out, but it was bad. And they couldn't even get the things to balance. And drag tires are typically a little bit, they're going to be a little bit tougher to balance, but DBRs, the Hoosier tires, I've never had an issue with them, and they're stable at speed. They're stable at 130, 150 miles an hour, just like the Mickey Thompsons are. It's just that they're more forgiving. I wouldn't use them on the street, though. I wouldn't try to make a bunch of street hits with them, but because they will try to hook, but you just end up feathering the tires. But that's the tire I would go with. Drag bracket radial by Hoosier. Gary's checking in with Sovereign. Start saying, hell yeah, Hill Raisin's good. Yeah, it is. Yeah. I've got an air conditioner that has got a little bit of an overachiever deal. So anyway, this AC, it's one of these little 220 volt plug-in deals. And that's what I'm always going, dee, 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 dee. That's what that's doing. Anyway, I don't know how old the thing is. It's got to be easily 20 years old, but it works really well. And I went through it and just absolutely gutted it and cleaned it, and it needed it. And so anyway, it's working really good right now. Let's see. Oh, Marco's saying, I feel the 4th gen Classic is better. I'm scared the 5th gen will have electrical problems over long term. Plus 4th gen fan delete. Oh, you can do the V6 fan. You can absolutely do that. So any of my 5th gen just has the 8.4 U-Connect. I don't have that big sideways TV that's in some of these trucks. It's just not it's not my style, man. It's just not what I'm cool with. And I've got the upgraded 7.5-inch screen. That's your dashboard is what that is. 100% recommend that. That's the same technology that's in the Hellcats and all the rest of the car stuff. So I'm cool with that. Let's see. I'm with you on the electrical thing, especially with the TV. But I mean, my Sport, my DS had the big screen in it too. And I never really had any issues with that thing now that I'm thinking about it. But I can tell you that the only issues that any of the fleet trucks have had, these are all DS trucks. The only issues that I can think of that have come up. Clock spring issues. This is at like 200,000 miles though. Clock spring for the steering wheel. Had one truck ended up with a body control module flake out. And that's really it. The Rams are really good. I will say this, as far as mechanical, the only issues I think we've have been transmissions. I think we had 3 trucks cook a trans. I think that's more driver error though, or driver in general. And I think half of them, if not all of them, have been serviced for Hemi tick at some point with the manifold bolts. So the 5th gen has no issues whatsoever with the manifold bolts. They just crack the manifold. Chuck saying, I used to have issues with Cooper tires on both of my trucks, F-250 and Silverado 1500. Tire wouldn't keep good pressure after a year, kept tripping my sensors. Weird. So I don't know what the hell off-brand tires I've got on mine. They're Hercules by, I don't know, somebody. Anyway, one of the weird things I've run, by the way, those tires are not very tough. I wouldn't recommend them, but you know, when they're free. But the thing is that the issue, and I don't know if this is a 17-inch rim, steel rim problem, and I just got through having to deal with this. The valve stems, for whatever reason in this truck, and you would, a valve stem, right? I mean, what? We're talking about a valve stem. Like, I've had valve stems on pretty much every car I've ever owned. And I think every car I've ever ridden in had a valve stem. I don't think one. No, yeah, I think they all did. And I've never had a problem with a valve stem. I've got valve stems on a trailer that have got to be 40 years old. They're still valve stemming. They're still stemming away, no problem. The valve stems in my DS, I've had more problems with them getting cut or failing for whatever reason. So it's been kind of weird with that. It's got tire pressure monitoring and all that. I don't know if it's the assembly. I have no idea. But that's that. And then I had another issue. I kind of hate it too when they're leaking out of the valve stem. It's just like, are you kidding me? And I'm talking about like they got cut. But the last one, so the valve stem sticking up out of the rim, this thing was kicked over like that. And it looked like it was